I'm Megan. I'm a research officer with SARDI from South Australia, and I'm also a PhD candidate with the University of Adelaide. I'm not involved in anything that you just saw on the screen there. I'm going to talk about something completely different with a rangelands focus and a South Australian focus, but all very applicable. So SARDI are undertaking a large body of work at the moment focusing on virtual fencing with a focus on animal welfare and applications of the tech in different farming systems, as well as trying to capture some of the value proposition for producers as well. So with the South Australian Drought Hub, we've been able to do some work in cattle and sheep, looking at managing landscapes for drought resilience using virtual fencing. So if I get my photos going. I'll have some photos rolling behind me as I speak that will show some of the activities that we've been doing. But today I just want to focus on one specific activity, which is a trial that we did at Winton Station. This is Jake Fennell, one of the owners. Him and his wife, Frankie, own and run Winton Station. So these activities that we undertook are funded by the South Australian Government's Research Commercialisation and Startup Fund, as well as SARDI and the SA Drought Hub. So it was really good to be able to collaborate all together on that project. So before I dive into the specifics of what we did, I'll just give a little bit of an overview on what virtual fencing is and how it works. So it's basically an invisible fence. That's Frankie in the pink there, me in the middle, and that's a landscapes officer as well in the arid lands. Anyway, so it's an invisible fence. It's all GPS enabled, and collars communicate the location of a predetermined virtual fence to the animal via audio and pulse signals. So this process is underpinned by what's called associative learning theory, which basically means that the animals are exposed to the audio, exposed to the pulse, depending on what their behaviours are, and they learn the association between those two cues. So the cattle will just be, or the sheep will be moving around the paddock, they will approach the virtual fence and their collar will give them a beep to say, you're getting close. If they stop, turn around, back away, do anything other than keep walking towards the virtual fence to go outside of it, their collar won't do anything. But if they continue forward, their collar will give them a pulse. And over time, they learn, if I stop when I hear the beep, I won't get the pulse, and that's the way that they're contained. So at the moment, there are 3 predominant devices commercially operating within Australia. All 3 of those are for cattle. There's nothing for sheep at the moment. And virtual fencing is currently prohibited under animal welfare legislation in all states, but Tasmania and Queensland. You guys here have access to 1 device out of the 3. So you're kind of halfway between yes and no. I would have really loved to have had Jake and Frankie here, but they decided to have a baby today, so they scheduled it in too, which I thought they could have done it tomorrow, but anyway. So rather than them coming to talk, I will invite Penny up to be, I guess, me, and I'll try to be Jake and Frankie for you. To give you a bit of information about what we did. So we'll go on a quick trip to Winton. I'll just put my hat on. Jake would be horrified. He doesn't wear a hat like this, I promise. Okay, let's go.
All right, Jake and Frankie, please tell me a bit about Winton Station.
Absolutely. So Winton Station is about 380,000 hectares, so nearly 1 million acres. And we run mixed breed beef cattle, so Boss Indicus and Boss Tourist mix. Jake always jokes that I always joke that we had every single breed of cattle other than Wagyu, and then we bought a Wagyu bull, so now we have everything. So they've got a real mixed bag. Wintoner has two main landscapes. The western side of the property is deep red sand hills with mulga cover, and the eastern side of the country is breakaway Mitchell grass country. So a little bit of a varied landscape, and we've owned Wintoner for 9 years now.
Wow. And you brought Barbara along in the photo there too.
This is
from
Barbara.
Wintoner. Yep.
Yes.
So what drew you to want to be involved in this project?
Yeah, so we've observed the benefits of resting country in the rangelands, and how this facilitates more pasture growth and diversity. So we'd really like to implement a more intensive rotational grazing system at Wintoner, but it's really difficult with the infrastructure that it requires, and it's over such a large area. So our ideal rotation would be 24 smaller paddocks that we rotate over a 2-year period, which allows us to be delivering, quality pasture in abundance to our animals all year round while still having a drought reserve. But to do that, it would be about 1,000 k's of fencing, and it would cost us about $5 million. So we can't justify that at the moment.
All right. I need to ask Megan a question now.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Here we go. Oh,
yes. Hello.
Megan. Oh, hi.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain the aims of the trial at Wintoner?
Yeah, so the aims of the trial, what we wanted to do was test out if virtual fencing could contain the cattle to specific areas within the paddock, and in doing that, exclude them from other areas in the paddock. And we wanted to know if that was going to be effective, relatively easy to do, and didn't have any impacts on production, negative impacts on production. And we also wanted to see if we could get tricky and use it to help us muster them as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what did you actually do to assess all this great stuff?
Yeah, so what we did was we ran a trial in a 4,500 hectare paddock. Asked them what their smallest paddock was, and that's what they could offer me. And what we did was we put in place a number of different virtual fencing configurations over a 4 or 5 month period, 4 months, I think, April to October. There we go, sorry. Old-fashioned with paper here. So we kept them off the northern boundary at the beginning of the trial. My pictures are gone. Yeah, we kept them off the northern boundary because am I Megan?
You're Megan right now. Yeah. Yep.
Jake always has issues with them sort of trying to head up through that boundary, and it's on the highway. So they were like, don't like that. So we thought we'll test that out first and see if we can do that. Really simple. Then what we did was, once we figured out that was pretty easy to do, we shifted them into a smaller area in the southwest of the paddock that has a lot of shrubby drainage lines through it, really higher producing than the rest of the paddock, and then rested the more marginal country. So we used GPS maps to determine if that was effective or not in terms of containment, and we assessed live weight gain throughout as well to make sure that we weren't having any negative impacts on production. Then we used a capture lane to muster. So we condensed the cattle prior to mustering to cut down the area that we needed to look in, and we used the GPS as well, the GPS tracking capability of the tech to help us out with that.
Back to Jake and Frankie. Quick.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, so on station level, can you describe the outcomes of this trial?
Yeah, so the virtual fencing contained the cattle to the areas that we had specified. Perfect timing. It did that quite well. So this is what we saw. We had a few instances of cattle wandering through the virtual fencings along the creek lines there. But they always came back, they always returned, and we could see that because we were tracking them. So that was really good. The level of containment achieved with the virtual fencing was comparable to what we achieved with our physical cattle fencing. So we were really happy with that. The system was fit for purpose for what we would like to use it for in the future. And then when we used virtual fencing to help muster, it was really successful. So usually to muster that paddock, it would take a couple of bikes and an aircraft, about 5 hours normally on a good day. With the virtual fencing, it took us 3 hours on 2 bikes with no aircraft. So that was a huge outcome for us. And because we used the GPS tracking, it was our first 100% clean muster in our time at Wintoner. So we were happy with that.
Yeah, that's seriously impressive and very promising. And what are some of the other added bonuses that you saw through virtual fencing use on your station?
Yeah, so one thing that was really cool is we were able to change the virtual fences into almost unlimited configurations, whereas if we had invested in $5 million of fencing, that's where the fences stay. So we were able to change shape, size, incorporate the water in different ways, and that was really cool. We also were able to take advantage of what we were calling passive movement, which is where you move the virtual fence and the cattle move into that area. You never use it to move the cattle, they always move into it and then can't go back out. So we could move them shift them into that southeastern corner without actually going out to the paddock, which was really cool. And being able to monitor where they are all the time was great because it gave us peace of mind that everything was where it was meant to be, still moving around, which is what we like to see. Those were a few added benefits.
Yep. And I think I know what the answer is to this next question, but some gaps and challenges for virtual fencing, maybe in South Australia?
Yeah, it's still prohibited for us in SA, so we can't actually commercially use the tech yet. But in a pastoral context for us, it would be great to be able to roll that out. It would be a game changer for the pastoral zone. Another thing is the connectivity at the moment. We're looking at LoRaWAN connected devices or cellular. So that doesn't work for all of us out in really remote areas. So having a satellite option would be great.
Excellent. Get Elon onto that. I need to speak to Megan again if I can.
Oh, okay.
Yep, just to finish off.
Yep, okay.
She's
Hello.
back. Excellent. What's next for virtual fencing in South Australia?
Yes, well, SARDI are tying up their current project. So findings from that one will be released in the coming 6 months. And we're starting on a large body of work that's been funded by the Future Drought Fund through the long-term trials program. So we're looking at sites across South Australia, assessing the suitability and practical considerations surrounding virtual fencing in a drought resilience and landscape management context. That'll be great. We're working on 4 different farms over the next 3 years. So,
exciting.
Looking forward to that.
That is really exciting. Thank you very much, Megan, Jake and Frankie. Cheers.